But it's a delight to speak on his behalf. So let me apologize for him and to commend this effort on his behalf. I think those of you who follow the media would see his picture in the media with shaking hands with the minister. And I think that in itself speaks volume in terms of his support for this initiative. So I just rise to endorse his own commitment to this, and by extension, the council. The Jamaica Council of Churches has its existence back in the 1930s to some extent, but certainly in the 1940s. And I have no doubt that students of history will remember that the 1930s was a very turbulent time in our history, and the fact that the council emerged out of that period suggests that we are mindful not only of the realities that were described earlier in our nation, in terms of the violence and the abuse, etc., but also we have positioned ourselves and continue to position ourselves as beacons of light. And that means peace, hope, transformation, reconciliation, etc. And I had the privilege of being in a meeting with Pope Francis, who is the boss of the Archbishop, earlier this year. And the Pope is going off to South Sudan this month to broker peace in that region where there continues to be tremendous conflicts, all as an indication of our commitment, not just as a local church, but as a global church, because he will be accompanied too by the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is the head of the Anglican Church. So these are just indicators that as church, we are very committed to this process of peace, justice, and reconciliation. And one of the things we know is that, in fact, this was indicated recently in a survey that was put out, and the Prime Minister was part of leading the announcement to that. And here comes the Archbishop. So I will let him have a breath, and then I will give him 2 minutes of my time. But we do know that the homes and families of Jamaica are producers of violence, and the churches have first call in many of these instances when there are conflicts in the homes and in families. So I think I will leave the rest of the Archbishop to conclude this thing.
Thank you, Bishop Gar. Oh, I have my time mixed up. I had my 10:30 in my diary. For some reason, I don't know how that happened. Minister, the General Secretary for the Jamaica Council of Churches, and other ministers of religion gathered here, and the special guests. Restorative justice is about ensuring social encounters through mediation so as to maintain social friendship in an ordered society. Restorative justice seeks to mitigate inappropriate reaction to conflict that will undermine human dignity, because persons under strain lack the capacity for self-control of emotions and lack the ability to reason and talk things out. Hence, intolerant attitudes towards others are on the rise, evident in the hostility, insults, abuse, defamation, verbal and physical violence destructive of others. Such lack of self-restraint also destroys self-esteem. When persons act to dominate others rather than acknowledge their common humanity as a basis for working things out, hence the necessity for intervention and mediation. I share a quote from a document, Fratelli Tutti, which means we are all brothers and sisters, by Pope Francis. Quote, "Today we have a great opportunity to express our innate sense of fraternity, to be good Samaritans who bear the pain of other people's troubles rather than fomenting greater hatred and resentment Like the chance traveler in the parable of the Good Samaritan, we need only to have a pure and simple desire to be a people, a community, constant and tireless in the effort to include, integrate, and lift up the fallen. We may often find ourselves succumbing to the mentality of the violent, the blindly ambitious, those who spread distrust and lies. Others may continue to view politics or the economy as an arena for their own power plays. For our part, let us foster what is good and place ourselves at its service. End of quote. The Church and State Partnership for Restorative Justice targets intervention at the local level of our homes and communities. There, we can identify the pain and the sense of inadequacy in resolving conflict. But there we will also rediscover all the goodness that God has planted in human hearts for working through difficulties that seem to be the excuse for harming each other. Persons need assistance and mediation to overcome pettiness, resentment, useless infighting, constant confrontation, feeling sorry for self, and failure to acknowledge personal faults. Mediation can facilitate reconciliation and reparation that can restore relationships. Such intervention involves dialogue, and the mediator facilitates opportunity for speaking, listening, looking at, coming to know and understand one another, and to find common ground for resolving conflict. This is opposite to parallel monologue, where persons do not hear what the other is saying as they concentrate on making their own point. Learning the art of patient, persistent, and courageous dialogue will keep families and communities together in the face of disagreement and conflict to live much better, for we are all brothers and sisters. We are our brother's keeper. We must look out and make sacrifice to care for the needs of each other. To be effective and sustainable, restorative justice must always promote social transformation that acknowledges the worth and the value of every human person. This is a basic principle of social life that tends to be ignored in a variety of ways. Hence, there must be a recognition that when some people live in places with few resources, less development of infrastructure, and a poverty-stricken environment, interpersonal and social peace will be unstable. The reality stares us in the face that the majority of cases that need mediation are where members of our society live in poverty-stricken conditions. Studies reveal that a pleasant environment can improve depression and anxiety, impact behavior and motivation to act responsibly. Likewise, environmental degradation poses a serious threat to a person's emotional state and well-being. Justice has two elements: rights and duties. This is the basis for the common good on which restorative justice can flourish. When individuals and classism takes center stage and I am concerned only about my rights without acknowledging my duty to consider the rights of the other, my neighbor, there will be interpersonal discontent. And when governance structures do not fulfill duty to the common good, there will be social discontent. Creating conditions that respect human dignity, create opportunities for empowerment, and provide access to advancing personal well-being. Where deficiencies exist regarding these fundamentals, there will be discontent in peace of mind that impact interpersonal and communal social engagement. There is the maxim, a hungry man is an angry man. And Bob Marley captures that sentiment more succinctly in this song. Them belly full, but we're hungry. A hungry mob is an angry mob. Rain a fall, but the dirt is tough. A pot a cook, but the food not enough. We gonna dance, oh Jah music, dance. Forget your troubles and dance. Forget your sorrows and dance. Forget your sickness and dance. Forget your weakness and dance. Cost of living gets so high, rich and poor, they start to cry. Now the weak must be strong. They say, oh, what a tribulation. And Jimmy Cliff, in his own song, also says, we are all one, we are the same person. I'll be you, and you'll be me. No matter where we are born, we are human beings, the same chemistry, with emotions and feelings, all corresponding in love. We can't go around it, no matter how hard we try. And if you should find out that we are no different than I, the only difference I can see is in the conscience and the shade of our skin. Doesn't matter, we laugh, we chatter. Don't we smile? We live. And the feelings that make all those faces always renew. And would you believe that I have all those same feelings too, the same as you? End of quote. Restorative justice is a craft that requires developing skills, techniques, and expertise that will lead to mastery in mediating social encounters to resolve conflict. However, a commensurate political activity is necessary to transform the variables of the social environment that contributes to stress and the mindset for explosive conflict. The partnership of the church with the state for restorative justice cannot only address interpersonal conflicts, but must also be contributory to underlying physical and socio-political problems. Social aggression finds unparalleled room for expansion because of poverty conditions within which persons live. An uneducated person, which we describe as ignorant, often resort to aggression to resolve conflict because reasoning ability is restricted because of underdeveloped literacy. Persons caught up in domestic conflict sometimes do not realize that frustration with their partner or their children or with their neighbor is contributed to by the depressing physical environment in which they live. Social peace demands hard work, craftsmanship, in order to keep explosive conflict in check and to avoid a peace that is superficial and fragile. The socio-economic and governance framework must be established for enduring stability that goes beyond cleverness and a few resources. Dialogue means that sectors responsible for the common good must collaborate and be in sync to ensure conditions that promote a healthy mindset for social advancement. The different sectors must not be complacent, self-centered in their outlook and in their limited concerns. Prudence requires then that we should not think that restorative justice to resolve interpersonal conflict will be sufficient for the social order being sought. What is required from governance, political will, and corporate input is indispensable to make, as it is said, to make the dream work. Social peace demands hard work, craftsmanship. It is to keep freedom and differences in check with cleverness, which avoids cleverness and a few resources. But such a peace would be superficial and fragile, not the fruit of a culture of encounter that brings enduring stability. All the variables that will guarantee for genuine and lasting peace must therefore be taken into consideration. The partnership of the church and state with the Ministry of Justice is intended to chart a new path of hope for Jamaica, because we are confident that Jamaica continues to sow abundant seeds of goodness in the hearts, rather that God continues to sow abundant seeds of goodness in the hearts of our human family. Hence, this partnership offers us new opportunities and a new possibility to make Jamaica the place to live, work, raise families, and do business. The involvement of the church intends to awaken the awareness that citizens of our nation also should not expect everything to be done by those who govern us, but that theirs is the need to be responsible and actively engage in the process for the transformation that will renew our troubled society. Amen.
Thank you, Your Grace, for those words and support for what the minister and the Ministry of Justice, what we are trying to achieve with the Restorative Justice Program. And want to thank you to Bishop Garth Minot for having stood in the absence of Your Grace until he arrived. I'm going to invite Dr. Everett Brown, President of the Jamaica Union Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, to now bring brief remarks.
Chair, Mrs. Grace Ann Stewart McFarlane, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice, Honorable Minister Delroy Chuck, heads of churches, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to thank you, Reverend Richards, Chair of the Umbrella Group of Churches, for your remarks. I'm delighted to be a part of this initiative and to be representing the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Jamaica at this signing ceremony as we seek to partner with the Ministry of Justice to leverage our resources as we continue to impact lives and to support human and national development. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has had a history of leveraging our human resources to help to uplift the citizens of this country. Two of our initiatives, our strategic initiatives as a church for the next 5 years, involve training and community impact. And Minister, I want to congratulate you and congratulate the ministry for this initiative, because it fits directly into exactly what the church seeks to do, to create an environment of peace, to reduce conflict, to be involved in reconciliation and ultimately healing. And so we look forward to this training. We look forward as a church to utilize this training to equip our members to be in a position to serve God, serve people, and serve country. And so we look forward to this training. We are committed, and I know under God and under your leadership, Minister, this program will ultimately achieve its purpose of creating peace, lessen conflict, and create a better environment and society for us as citizens to live in. Thank you. We welcome this program and we support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, for your comments and support of the Restorative Justice Program. Reverend Kadu is absent, and so we'll move. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not see that you were here. I am so sorry. Please welcome Reverend Kadu from the Jamaica School of Preaching and Bible Studies, the Church of Christ in Jamaica.
Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, dear friend, Minister Delroy Chuck, fellow ministers of religion, this is a very important day in the life of our country. The Minister of Justice has taken this important step to involve the church in dealing with the alarming incidents and domestic disputes, reprisals, domestic violence, murder in Jamaica. I am sure that you are, and members of the Church of Christ, are very concerned about the alarming turn of events in Jamaica in terms of violence. My friend Delroy, we both at age approximately 12 experienced independence. In 1962, there were about 50 murders in Jamaica. At that time, marriage was heralded. My mother, Ethelyn Kidu, was part of the Women's Federation. And in the 1950s, there was a push to promote marriage in Jamaica. The colonialists thought that family life was very, very important. Here we are in 2022, and August has passed, and 1,000 murders have taken place. So let me commend Minister Chuck for promoting this initiative. It's no surprise to me. At Kingston College, he was in prayer meetings every lunchtime. So he has that part of him that you don't really know. But there's a God in heaven who has said, righteousness exalteth a nation. Righteousness exalteth a nation. What's the difference between Jamaica in 1962 and Jamaica of today? Jamaica in 1962, 70% of the people went to church. Jamaica in 2022, 70% of the people do not go to church. And so in us having this activity, Mr. Chairman, Minister of Restorative Justice, we are going to be dealing with the results of a movement away from God in Jamaica. The results of persons seeking to live their lives without God at the center of their lives. Hence, we have Jamaica having the highest murder rate in the world. So this activity of restorative justice is an excellent initiative. But we are dealing with the end product of the problem. The problem is that our people, our nation, has moved away from obedience to God. There is a major deterioration in family life in Jamaica. I heard a speaker in the United States say a few words just recently. 20 years ago, 40% of children in the United States were raised in single-parent homes. Today, that is Black Americans, today, 70% are raised in single-parent homes in America. And we are following the same trend. I would like to encourage the government of Jamaica, the churches of Jamaica, to refocus on rebuilding Jamaica's family life from where it is today. We have a problem with family life. Friends, I have known a mother who lived in Hannahtown, surrounded by gunmen. She lived in a single room. She raised her son, went to Excelsior High School. And that son turned out to be an outstanding contributor to society. And you know why? Because how she raised him. In other words, he grew up in the midst of poverty, but he grew up with a strong family system. So his mother raised him well. We need an initiative to restore marriage and good family life in Jamaica. Amen? That's what we need. And so I appreciate what is being initiated today. But I also would like to see the government say, look, what was said by the Minister of National Security in the United Kingdom. Family life is a national security issue. Shall I say it again? Family life in Jamaica is a national security issue. Meaning, if we don't do something about renewing family life in Jamaica, then we could have 1 million police. We will not solve the crime problem. Amen? So we'd like to send a message to the government. Recently, the Minister of Finance went ahead and said we are going to make it possible for men to get paternal leave. That's good. But it just goes to show that there are certain steps that can be taken to enhance family life. In other words, we should not shy away from this. Jamaica has a major family life problem, and it's affecting our economy because of crime. The economy is not growing as it should. We need to have a gathering like this to say, what can we do to restore married life and family life in Jamaica? We need to have a conference of churches, of civil groups to say, what are we going to do about this problem? Because we cannot solve Jamaica's problems without solving our family life problem. We cannot solve Jamaica's problems without solving the problem of people walking away from Almighty God. I close by referring to what God said to the children of Israel just before they went into the promised land. Here's what he said. Now it shall come to pass, if you will diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments, which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all nations of the earth, and all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you because you obey the voice of the Lord. But then he goes on to say, but if you do not obey the voice of the Lord, to observe carefully all his commands and his statutes which I command you today, that all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. Righteousness exalteth. Friends, churches, encourage our people to turn back to God. Encourage our people to turn back to godly family life, so that restorative activities like this will have an impact. But without turning back to God, Luke 13:3. 13:3 says, unless you repent, you shall perish. God bless you.
Thank you for that charge, Reverend Kidu. Minister, I feel as if time allowed, we would have a revival in here. At this time, I will invite Reverend Ian Muirhead, Senior Pastor at the Upper Room Community Church, to bring us brief remarks. Please make him welcome.
Good morning. Honorable Minister Delroy Chuck, Madam Chairperson, Honorable Minister Delroy Chuck, members of the head table, and distinguished leaders of the faith community. The minister with whom I have worked for the last 25 years in our community, one of the things that that came to my mind is that the minister is introducing a program that he himself has implemented with other partners in the community of Grand Spence. So he's not presenting a theoretical model. It is something that he has done. And I'm going to share a little about those results. I just want to say something briefly about his character. He did not ask me to speak about his character. But generally speaking, people are they're very careful when it comes to politicians. But about 2004, there was a lot of murders taking place in a particular area of the community. And he invited me to a meeting which he set up right in that community. He invited the opposition representative, his counterpart, and the opposition representative did not come. And I was there praying and I said, Lord, don't let Minister Chuck ask me to speak. Because I did not want to speak the fact that, you didn't have representation from both sides. And lo and behold, he called on me. Now, this is one of the main reasons why I respect him. I went up, I took the microphone, and I said, before I say anything, I want people to understand I am not JLP and I'm not PNP. I do not align myself with any political party because being in a community where there was a lot of political rivalry at that time, I thought that that was a wise position to take. But I thought that having said that, declared that publicly, that he would have probably withdrawn from further association with me. But that has not been the case. It has gotten closer, and it has remained close over the years. So, I just wanted to say that. Now, he has always had a practice of engaging the churches in our community. Right? Whatever he does, he always invites the church. And I remember a number of years ago, he came to me and he handed me $400,000 cash. And he said, share it up among the churches for them to buy food for the needy in the community. And well, I was very, not very happy about receiving cash. But I did that. I said to the churchmen, this money is for food. It's not to buy a tire for your car or to do anything other than to buy food. And, I went back to him and I took a receipt. I took receipts for every cent of that money. But you know what he said when he gave the money? He said, don't tell them who gave you the money. He was not looking for advertisement. He said, don't tell them who gave you the money. Right? Now, grand spend. We're coming from a situation where there were 30 murders per year in a population of 6,500. Not 65,000. 6,500. There was not one road, as I reflected this morning, there's not one road in the community where somebody was not murdered. Blood has been shed all over that community. Every street, every lane, blood has been shed. But today, we are a transformed community. There are no more political violence, no more gang-on-gang violence. There are still times when you have conflicts between persons. And yes, you'll have sometimes one or two murders taking place. But the community is very open and people are walking freely day and night in the community. And the community, we had a situation where businesses were closing down. Buildings were being abandoned. Now we have a situation where many businesses are coming up and the price of real estate has rocketed in the community. So that's to have prosperity, you need peace. Peace comes before prosperity. So one of the things that we did was that the ministers fraternal, at that time I was the chairman, we had a training in grief counseling because there were a lot of persons who were grieving because members of their family, relatives friends have been murdered. But there was also a massive effort in terms of conflict resolution. And out of that population of 6,500, about 3,500 persons were trained in conflict resolution at different levels, including children. Very important. And I share this to underline the importance of the program that the Minister and the Minister of Justice is implementing. This is very important. So, I just want to thank God for this program. It's an opportunity for the church to partner with the state. And one of the things that I notice as I look through the training program, is that there is an aspect of forgiveness, that is necessary, which I think is very important for us as the church. So I just want to congratulate Minister Chuck again. And, you know, he also called gangs together. Now, there was something in the media about you can't counsel, what is it? You can't counsel gangs, but we were not doing that. You know, he would bring the gangs together. The gangs would meet at a church and in the presence of a minister of religion, and they would seek to identify, you know, the areas of conflict that were causing gang warfare. And it really helped because one, it engaged them, it confronted them, and, you know, it sought to bring resolution in terms of the conflicts. So, and I know also that he also engaged gangs by himself and, you know, spoke with them, tried to find out what were the problems. So I thank God for this program, and I want to encourage everyone. I think it's the experience in Grand Spend has shown that, you know, it does contribute to community transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Muirhead. And I think I can concur with Reverend Muirhead about minister always involving the churches. You would have heard in my opening remarks, I mentioned that earlier this year, the minister launched his campaign on alternative justice services. And when he goes out, a number of us accompany him. And we are in church on a Saturday and we are in church on a Sunday as part of the campaign. So he really does keep the church involved. At this time, I am going to invite no other than the Honorable Delroy Chuck to come and make his address to us. Minister.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary Grayson McFarlane. And if I may just adopt the protocol, I want to firstly thank all the ministers, everyone who is present here this morning. Really and truly, it will be a historic beginning to what I hope will be a major impact of transformation across Jamaica, which we have noted and which will develop into a major social integration, transformation of the state working with the churches. Firstly, I am sure many in the audience may be wondering, why did I have these 4 speakers up front and not you? Well, firstly, a couple of months ago, I don't know if Dr. Brown will recall, when we launched St. Catherine Parish Association, I spoke with you about bringing restorative justice into the churches. And from then, we have been talking about bringing it into the Seventh-day Adventist churches. And then on Emancipation Day, I happened to see Archbishop Richards, and I said, listen, we want to launch this thing with the churches. So I wanted to be here at least to make some remarks. And I'm glad both of them are here. Then Gladwin and I, as he intimated, we have over 60 years, close to 60 years, we have been friends. Gladwin, as you know, is a pastor and also head of the Church of Preaching, Church of Christ in Mona. And throughout the decades, his family and mine have been very close. And in the last 25 years, as Reverend Muirhead has said, we have been transforming Grand Spend from a very volatile society, conflict virtually every day, every week. I work very closely with the churches from the very beginning, going into Grand Spend. We almost used to have weekly, monthly meetings because of the number of conflicts. I remember meeting in all the churches, including many of you will remember Richard Albert. In fact, in his vestry, two gangs used to meet right there in his vestry. And the gang leaders never look at one another. They used to shake hands like this. And, Archbishop, sorry, Richard Albert used to say, look at one another, look, and they, reluctant to look at one another, just to show you. Later on, the first time I saw Reverend Murid, when we pulled them together in a football competition, and I used to see Reverend Murid watching the football competition. In the football competition, all the groups had to go to church in the morning, and after church, we went to play football. Now, I have found, and having grown up in the church, that the church is a very important part of the Jamaican society. And I just wonder, why is it we have not utilized the churches more in transforming Jamaica at all levels? And that is why, having worked with the churches in Grand Spain, to see how we can reduce conflicts, volatility, aggression, and a lot of other problems, I say it's about time I embark on a program to involve the churches across Jamaica. And as the permanent secretary said, we started. By every parish we go to, we make sure we go to a church on a Saturday and a church on a Sunday. And heads of churches, representatives of churches, I would really be happy to visit your church. And just to visit your church, worship in your church as we go around Jamaica. I've been trying to find out how many churches we actually have in Jamaica, and no one really knows. But I can assure you, my aim is really to get restorative justice in every single one. And the aim is that in every church, we would like at least 20 leaders and members of the church, somewhere between 20 and 30, to go and undertake this 2-day program. I can assure you that this 2-day program will really be transformative. People will engage and become different persons because we have done it with teachers, students, community members, JPs, and it has been having an enormous impact on people's lives. We have tried to reach out to all the churches, and I do apologize if there are churches that we have not yet contacted. We have tried as best as possible to find the churches. What we would like to do, though, is to indicate that there are 20 restorative justice centers right across Jamaica. In every parish, there's at least one. But in Kingston and St. Andrew, we have several. Trenchtown, Denhamtown, Augusttown, Pembroke Hall, Tower Hill, and also Tivoli, sorry. So, and Greenwich Farm. So, these restorative justice centers, and each has a restorative justice officer and a liaison officer, all trained to be able to impart this 2-day program. But we are now embarking on another program to have at least 5 to 10 trained additional facilitators who can put on this 2-day program. Pastors, ladies and gentlemen, restorative justice is a success. And one of the problems in Jamaica is that success is not replicated enough. We tend to like failures and highlight failures. We tend to see the negatives. When things are successful, it's as if it is by chance. And you don't see enough success being preached and talked about in the media or social media. What you see mainly in the media and social media, every negative, every gloom and doom. But things that are successful, you don't really see it. The church, in all its programs, have been very successful. Do you see that highlighted in the media? Rarely. And it seems to me there has to be a way for us to really explain and ensure that successes are brought across every nook and cranny of Jamaica. And that is where I say restorative justice has not only been a success in every way, it is something that is needed in every corner of Jamaica. When we look at how it has progressed, and we started to take statistics over the last 4 years. In the main referral for restorative justice is from the courts. 78% of the cases actually come from the courts. And of those cases that come from the courts, 93% of the cases are successful. In other words, when the courts send us cases and you go through a process of restorative justice practice with the offender, the victim, community, or the family, and after 3-4 months, they go back to the court to say, we are happy, we have consented, or we have settled the matter. Isn't that success? But what is very sad is that the courts, especially the parish courts, and I'm speaking particularly of the parish courts, they have over 70,000 cases per year. Approximately 30,000 in the criminal courts, another 25,000 in the family courts, and 20,000 in the civil courts. The courts are overburdened. And what they've discovered is that with restorative justice practice and mediation, and there's a difference between mediation and restorative justice. Mediation is primarily where no wrongs have been committed, but the parties have a disagreement or a conflict, and you do mediation, mainly primarily for the civil courts and sometimes for the family courts. Restorative justice is where there's a victim and an offender, primarily in the criminal courts and sometimes in the family courts, occasionally in the civil courts. And the basis of it is that the court will say, you have been charged. A claim is made against you because you have done something wrong. Are you willing to accept that wrongdoing, to acknowledge it, bear responsibility? And if that is so, then the restorative justice can work. Because without the offender accepting responsibility, you cannot get the victim to forgive, which is the basis of restorative practice. Accepting responsibility, forgiving. And what is the beauty of restorative justice is that it places the victim up front. The concerns and challenges of the victims are addressed in a restorative justice circle. And where across Jamaica now, you have abuses, domestic violence, various conflicts in our communities. Restorative justice is the real appropriate mechanism to get parties to restore their relationship. The various actual evidence of families who have been torn apart because of abuses, sometimes violence, who have come to restorative justice for them to be able to get back together is really an emotional relief when you hear how parties restore their relationship. So one of the reasons why I'm making these points, we cannot only depend on the courts. We want the courts to provide more cases. The courts have said that they're providing as many as they can. Not all cases. They will refer to restorative justice. It has to be appropriate. And the offender will have to say, are you prepared to work with the victim and the restorative justice facilitator? But when we have such a success story we must replicate it at all levels. And so in 2022, I am aware that the courts have been referring more and more cases to restorative justice. And in fact, that is what is assisting in reducing the backlog. But we have not enough cases from the police, the school, the community, or the churches. And this is where now this program, we are determined to invite the churches to sensitize all the churches so that if you know of a domestic case, family, that really need to repair their relationship, the parties can be encouraged to go to the Justice Center and see if they can get together with the family, other members, with a restorative justice facilitator to see if the relationship can be restored. There are many, many cases, as I've said, where families have been at loggerheads, and because of restorative justice, the relationship has been restored. And that is so in many other situations. So the program is really to invite and to urge the churches, community members, the schools, if you know of these sort of abuses, these sort of hurt, to see if more of these parties can be referred to the Restorative Justice Center so the facilitators can in fact assist in restoring the relationship. I'm just amazed. This is a story of success, but it is not promoted. It is not known. But can you imagine? Other countries know about it. So that Andreen is going to indicate to you shortly that Indonesia, you know where Indonesia is, around the other side of the world, has heard about the program in Jamaica and plan to send a 15-member team here. They wanted to come this month. Andreen will elaborate shortly, to find out how we do restorative justice, because they know of the success story. So across the world, people are hearing about the success. People want to replicate the success, but we don't have it here in Jamaica. And I'm saying we have hidden the success stories, and this minister and this ministry will be talking about the success so it can be replicated over and over and heal the wounds, solve the conflicts, try to really temper the volatility in communities. Jamaica needs this, pastors, and I'm begging you to assist. That is why we want this memorandum of understanding. It is not a legal document. As you can see, it is really symbolic of what we want to engage with you. And what we would want you to do is to indicate to all the churches, your churches, other churches, to please get in touch with the Restorative Justice Center and, plan a program, a 2-day program. It doesn't have to be 2 consecutive days. The times are flexible. The coordinators will arrange with you and the parties what is the most appropriate time, the most appropriate day. It can be over a 2-week period, Friday and Friday, Saturday and Saturday, Sunday and Sunday. When we're going to be flexible. What is more, the ministry and my friend Nigel Clark has given us funds so that if you know of cases where parties are at loggerhead, husband and wife, families, refer them to restorative justice centers, because when a case is referred either by the courts or by the community, and we put them in a conference, a restorative justice circle, we actually pay the facilitator to conduct the program over a period of time to ensure that the parties, we try as best as possible for the parties to restore their relationship. These are things, ladies and gentlemen, pastors, we really want to do to bring Jamaica from the brink of disaster. Because with the murders and violence in this country, we are really at the brink. We should not be the murder capital of the world. This is something that we must be ashamed of. And it is something which we will all have to work together to make sure that Jamaica can be a place where we move about freely. That is what we have achieved in Grand Spain. When I went to Grand Spain, people said they don't go to that lane, they don't go to that lane. And the ambition was that you go across. The only problem we have now is too many parties. And I would just like to thank Reverend Muren, Reverend Kinu, Dr. Brown, Archbishop, and all of you for participating in what will be a signing ceremony. And those of you who would like to see what has happened in the last 25 years, just recently we had a peace park. We opened a peace park in Grand Spain. There's a booklet at the back. You can pick up one when you're leaving. Of 25 years, I think Reverend Muren features a bit in it. Over the years, how we have, in a sense, transformed a bit of Grand Spain. So, pastors, thank you very much for being here. But this is just the beginning. The journey ahead is a long one. And at the end of the journey, we want a Jamaica where the church has played a significant part in restoring peace and tranquility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I am sure you would have heard his passion for the program and the belief that he has that we can turn Jamaica around with this program. Mrs. Andreen Lindsay Williams, I see on the program. She is our chief in Restorative Justice, lead on Restorative Justice. Will come and speak to us this time about the Indonesian study tour to Jamaica, where they have expressed an interest in our program to see how it works because they want to make it work in their country. Miss Lindsay?
Thank you, Mrs. McFarlane. Good morning, everyone. I would like to start by saying all the protocols that have been established, I will observe. So before I begin, really, I would just like to say, as I listen to all of the presenters here today and our Honourable Minister, it just warms my heart, and I'm sure it warms your heart as well, to hear how many people are interested in restorative justice. Throughout the years in restorative justice, we always incorporate the church on an informal basis. So to be here today and hear about how we're going to now forge ahead in a more formal way, it really is something that we value highly. You would have heard mentioned from Minister, and I must say, Minister, as the Permanent Secretary has said, Minister is so passionate about restorative justice, and we've all caught his vision for restorative justice and just fallen into line with this program. He really is amazing leader, I'm sure in many ways, but in restorative justice, he really is pushing this program for peace across Jamaica. And as he has said, across the world. In March 2022, this year, a country manager for the United Nations on drugs and crime in Indonesia contacted this ministry after learning about Jamaica's restorative justice program through various media outlets and interviews. I know Minister said that in Jamaica, we're not very well known. It's like a little best kept secret. But I must say, restorative justice is really reaching across the world. Because though I'll talk about Indonesia, I just want to take the time to also mention Lagos, Nigeria, who's made contact with us, and also Australia. They've also made contact with us to say, look, we've heard about restorative justice in Jamaica, and we're really interested how things are being done there. We want to hear more about it and see if we could implement this in our country as well. So with Indonesia, the communication from March 2022 really sparked an ongoing dialogue. And we here in Jamaica learned that Indonesia was desirous of learning from Restorative Justice Jamaica. We learned that Indonesia are at the very beginning stages of formulating a national strategy on RJ, and the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, as a partner with the government of Indonesia, are keen to assist with developing a realistic and practical strategy that will not just be on paper, but actually implemented. It has been recognized that issues of financing and politics are typically two of the most challenging barriers to overcome in moving forward initiatives such as restorative justice. And Indonesia recognizes that Jamaica may have faced similar challenges with both financing and politics. In this case, they are very interested to learn of how Jamaica has responded to these challenges and how the RJ program has been implemented amidst same challenges. So following on from the ongoing discussions and meetings, in July this year, we were invited to present virtually at a conference that was being held in Indonesia entitled Contextualizing RJ in Indonesia. Other guests on the panel, the other speakers at the conference included the Deputy for Coordination of Law and Human Rights at the Ministry of Politics, Law and Security of the Republic of Indonesia, the Indonesian National Police, the Deputy Attorney General for General Crime, the Supreme Court Justice of the Criminal Chamber, the Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice Officer at the UNODC in Vienna, and also the Director General of Corrections. What was most interesting to me about this event, though, is that the organizers wanted to ensure that all the presenters went ahead of me in presenting, because what they really wanted was for them to speak about how things had started out in Indonesia, but for them to be able to hear how we were doing things here in Jamaica. The conference was an excellent representation of RJ, and in my opinion, RJ in Jamaica really shone at this event. I did present with enthusiasm, even though it was midnight here in Jamaica. I'm not sure if you're aware that Indonesia is 12 hours ahead of us. So they had the conference at midday. So it was midnight here. So I burned the midnight oil for RJ Jamaica. As a direct result of the conference and the ongoing dialogue, Indonesia has expressed a keen interest in completing an RJ study tour to Jamaica. Minister would have mentioned a 15-strong member delegate, including some of the country's most influential leaders in politics, crime, corrections, and law. They had wanted to come in October, but due to the procurement process, it has been delayed a little, and now they would be coming in November. During the tour, we are scheduling various activities, including visits to the courts of Jamaica, departments of correction, houses of parliament, the police commission and office, and also we definitely like to incorporate the churches, Minister. And I think it's fitting that we are today completing this MOU, because when the Indonesian tour comes to Jamaica, we'd really like to come around to some of the churches for them to speak about it. I know as well, Indonesia, they've expressed to me that they have a very strong faith-based country. So with the churches, I think they would really love to see how things are being done. So to really wrap up, the work that Jamaica is undertaking to implement RJ can provide invaluable lessons to Indonesia. Despite the vast difference in sizes between countries, Indonesia is the 4th most populous country in the world, consisting of over 17,000 islands. Did anybody else know that? No, because when they told me 17,000 islands, I was in disbelief. I went and Googled it. I thought, no, maybe it was a mistake. And it really is there on Google. So even though, Indonesia is not a country we speak about like the United States, we don't talk about it every day, but there really are a lot of people there, and there really is a lot of conflict there as well, especially when it comes to extremism. So we think that RJ, and they think that RJ will play a substantial role in assisting the conflict there. So we are just as excited about the study tour as Indonesia is, and we look forward to hosting them and showing them how Jamaica's RJ program has impacted Jamaica and Jamaicans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lindsay Williams, for that presentation on the impending study tour. You would have heard our other very enthusiastic and passionate person on RJ, Minister and Andreen Lindsay Williams. They're the lead on the Restorative Justice program, which has now become a flagship program of the Ministry of Justice. And of course, that fire for RJ has been caught by the whole Restorative Justice team. I think they live, breathe, and speak, walk and talk restorative justice. And that's the kind of fire we want the church to catch and to help in cauterizing the how we manage conflict in Jamaica. Now we are at the point where we're going to be signing the MOU, that symbolic arrangement, as Minister indicated, with you, the heads of churches. Now, by being here today, you have, of course, shown your commitment, not just to partnering with the Ministry of Justice, but your commitment to God and country, and of course, to see a better nation, being displayed right across the world. But before we get into the signing, I'm going to invite Miss Oliphant, who will make the announcements as you come forward for the signing. But just before Miss Oliphant comes, Miss Oliphant is our director, senior director for the Justice Policy Analysis and Development branch in the ministry, an attorney at law. But just before she comes, there were some persons who came after we did our initial acknowledgement. I am going to just ask that you indulge me while I ask those persons who were not acknowledged earlier and are in the audience, if you could just quickly tell us who you are, starting in the front row here. Very well. Thank you, sir. Next. See? Very well. Wonderful. Welcome, sir. Anyone else? Thank you for coming, sir. Next. Great. Anyone else? Thank you for coming, sir. Yes, Pastor. Great to have you. Is there anyone else? Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for being here. I have someone else. Oh, yes, the Baptist Union. Thank you so much. Great. A wide cross-section being represented here this morning. Now I'm going to invite Miss Oliphant, Renee Oliphant, who will make the announcements for the signing of the MOUs. And we're going to try to move quickly as the minister has another appointment. So over to you, Ms. Oliphant.
Thank you very much. Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Minister, all protocols observed in the interest of time. We actually have three small batches for institutions in each batch. And we're going to start with the first batch. The persons are actually sitting at the head table. So we have the Jamaica Council of Churches, represented by Reverend Newton Dixon, the Jamaica Union of Conferences of Seventh-day Adventists, Dr. Everett Brown, the Church of Christ in Jamaica, Reverend Gladwin Kiddu, and the Upper Room Community Church, Reverend Ian Muirhead. What will happen is that the PS, Permanent Secretary, will sign on behalf of the ministry, and the pastors will sign, and then Minister will witness PS's signature. Oh, he will do all of the signatures. So we will start off with our first batch. The documents are being handed out, and the MOUs would have been shared, I think, with virtually every institution or organization that is reflected here. We have had a few situations where persons are interested in signing in the future, and so we're anticipating that that will be happening. It's an ongoing activity.
You need to tell me churches. I just pass and sign on, pass on.
Yeah, just pretend signing. Give pass the back in. Pastors, what you're gonna do is to pretend like you're signing so we can get it on the camera. All right, so let's go, let's go.
All eyes down again.
Nobody can do the original, what they're doing.
No, the same thing anyway. But the picture won't be any much different because it's just a dot. So, yeah.
Perfect. Can give this a minute, please? Oh, not yet. When I'm
Name tags. Okay. So we're preparing for a second batch where we'll have the Independent Churches of Jamaica. We actually have two signatories, Bishop Michael Smith and Reverend Sharona Brown. We also have the Diocese of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, Bishop Garth Minot, the Jamaica Methodist Church, Bishop Christine Gooden Benguche, and Reverend Gary Harriott. Yes. Reverend Gary Harriott, representing the United Church in Jamaica. Can I also ask you to bring your nameplates, please? Okay.
I'm asking, witness signature, okay. Writing the dates. Yeah, you can continue the dates.
You have them ready?